The last thing my sister-in-law said to me before she boarded the plane to Maui was, "I hope you enjoy staying home." She said it with a smile. That was 6 days ago. By the time she landed, I had already contacted a real estate attorney. Let me back up. My name is Avery. I'm 31 years old and I work in software procurement for a mid-sized logistics company based out of Columbus, Ohio. I'm not rich by any stretch. I drive a 4-year-old Honda. I pack my lunch most days, and I have a very aggressive savings spreadsheet that my coworkers make fun of me for. But I've been careful with money since I was 19, when my mom sat me down and told me that nobody was coming to save us, so I'd better learn to save myself. I took that seriously. My brother Elliot did not. Elliot is 34. He's charming, he's funny, he has one of those faces that makes people instantly trust him, and he has spent his entire adult life coasting on that. He works in sales, or he says he does, but the commissions are always just about to come through and the big deal is always basically closed. He married his wife Priscilla 4 years ago. Priscilla is the kind of woman who describes herself as an energy healer, while simultaneously spending $300 on crystals at a boutique in the short north. She does not work, she has never worked as far as I can tell. My parents adore them both. That's the part that took me the longest to understand, and honestly, I'm still working through it. My parents, my mom especially, have always treated Elliot like he was made of something fragile, something that needed constant protecting. When he got a speeding ticket at 20, my dad paid it. When he failed out of his first semester at Ohio State, my mom told everyone he'd taken a leave of absence to find himself. When he and Priscilla were 3 months behind on their rent 2 years into their marriage, my parents asked me if I could help. Not asked Elliot to get a second job. Not suggested Priscilla look for work. Asked me. I helped. Of course I helped. They're my family. I covered 6 months of their rent, $2,200 a month, so $1,200 total, while telling myself it was a loan. I even wrote it down on a piece of paper. Elliot signed it with a little laugh, like the whole thing was a bit. I should have taken that laugh more seriously. After the rent situation, things stabilized for a while. Elliot got a new sales job that seemed more stable. Priscilla started selling essential oil bundles on Instagram, and my parents stopped calling me in a panic every other month. I let myself believe we'd moved past it. Then my grandmother passed away and left me $48,000. I want to be clear about something. My grandmother was a very deliberate woman. She had 4 grandchildren and she left specific amounts to each of us based on what she knew about us. My cousin got money toward her nursing degree. My other cousin got a smaller amount because, as Grandma put it in the letter she'd written to each of us, "You've always landed on your feet and I trust you will again." She left an Elliot $8,000 and wrote that she hoped he would use it wisely. She left me $48,000 because she said I was the one she never had to worry about, and she wanted that to mean something. I didn't tell my family the exact amount. I said she'd left me some money and left it at that. But my mom has a way of finding things out. About 3 weeks after the inheritance cleared, she called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making dinner and said, very casually, "Elliot and Priscilla have been looking at houses." I said that was nice. She said, "They found a place in Westerville. Really good school district." I said I wasn't aware they were planning to have kids. She laughed and said, "Well, you have to think ahead." Then she said, "The thing is, they're $22,000 short on the down payment." I stood in my kitchen holding a wooden spoon and said nothing for a long time. "Mom," I finally said, "that's not a small amount of money." "I know, sweetheart. But you have it and they're family." I should have said no, I know that now. But I was 30 years old and I still believed that doing the right thing by your family would eventually come back around. I believed my mom when she said Elliot would pay me back once they refinanced. I believed her when she said Priscilla had a real opportunity with her wellness business. I believed, somewhere deep down, that saying yes would make me the kind of person I wanted to be. I wrote them a check for $22,000. There was no signed agreement this time. Elliot said it would feel weird to make it official, and my mom nodded like that made complete sense. And I didn't push it because I didn't want to be the difficult one. I didn't want to be the one who ruined the moment by insisting on paperwork. I just handed over $22,000 and told myself it would be fine. They closed on the house in March. Priscilla sent me a photo of them holding the keys. She did not say thank you in the caption. 18 months passed, no mention of repayment. I brought it up once, gently, over Christmas dinner, and Elliot said things were a little tight right now, and my mom gave me a look like I'd just kicked a dog. So I dropped it. Then, in January of this year, my parents called with exciting news. They had booked a family vacation to Maui, a full week at a resort in Wailea. My dad said it was a celebration, their 40th wedding anniversary combined with Elliot and Priscilla's 5th. He said they'd been saving for years. We want the whole family there, my mom said. It's going to be so special. I was genuinely happy. I love Maui. I hadn't taken a real vacation in almost 3 years, and the idea of a week with my family, real quality time, no drama, actually made me emotional in a good way. I started looking at flights from Columbus to Kahului. I found a reasonable fare and was about to book when my dad called back. Actually, honey, he said, the thing is, Elliot and Priscilla are in a bit of a bind. They were going to book their flights this week, but Priscilla's had some unexpected expenses. He paused. We were wondering if you could cover their flights, just as a gift. You know how much this trip means to your mother. Their flights were $1,480 combined. I booked them on my card. A week later, my mom called again. The resort had a swim-up suite upgrade available, only $600 more for the week. And wouldn't it be wonderful for Elliot and Priscilla to have something special for their anniversary? I paid the $600. Then there were the luau tickets. $280 for the 4 of them. My parents had already paid for themselves, but Elliot and Priscilla hadn't budgeted for excursions. I paid the $280. At some point I lost track of the exact number. I just kept saying yes because every ask came wrapped in the same phrase. You know how much this means to your mother. And I did know. I love my mom. That's not a small thing. By the time the trip was 2 weeks out, I had spent $2,360 on other people's vacation and had not yet booked my own hotel room because every time I tried, something else came up that needed my attention first. And then I got the text. I was at my desk at work on a Wednesday morning. My phone was face up next to my keyboard, which it usually isn't, and I saw the notification come in from my mom. I assumed it was something about the trip, packing list, itinerary, update, something like that. It said, "Honey, I need to tell you something and I hope you understand. Dad and I talked it over and we think this trip should really just be the 4 of us. Me, Dad, Elliot, and Priscilla. It's our anniversary and we want it to be intimate, family only. I know you'll understand, love you." I read it 4 times. Family only. I sat very still for what felt like a long time. My coworker walked by and asked if I wanted coffee and I said yes without looking up. I read the text again. I know you'll understand. I want to describe how that felt, but I'm not sure I have the right words for it. It wasn't just hurt. It was something more specific than that. A kind of rearranging, like something I'd believed to be solid had turned out to be painted cardboard. All those years of being the responsible one, the one who showed up, the one who wrote the checks, and when they wanted to have a moment that actually mattered, I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't family. I was the ATM they called before the family trip. I put my phone down. I drank the coffee my coworker brought me. I did not respond to the text. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and searched for real estate attorneys in Columbus who handled property disputes. Here's something Elliot and Priscilla didn't know about the house I helped them buy. When I gave them that $22,000, I had quietly consulted with a friend who works in lending, and she had suggested, very casually, the way smart people suggest things they want you to hear, that if I ever gave money toward a real estate purchase for a family member, I should consider filing a lien. It's a legal claim on the property that protects a creditor's interest. You can do it in Ohio. It's not complicated if you do it right. I had done it right. Before I handed over that check, I had filed a $22,000 lien on the Westerville property through the Franklin County Recorder's Office. Elliot had never asked about it. My parents didn't know. Priscilla, who liked to talk about manifesting abundance, had never thought to pull the property records. The lien meant that if the house was ever sold or refinanced, the $22,000 had to be paid to me first before anyone saw a dime of equity. When I sat down with the attorney that Friday, she looked at my documentation and said, "This is very clean." I said thank you. She said the lien was properly recorded and fully enforceable. She said that if I wanted to accelerate the process, she could send a formal demand letter asserting the debt was due, which would put Elliot and Priscilla in a position of either paying me or facing the lien being enforced during any future sale or refinancing. I told her to send the letter. I also that same week called my credit card company and disputed the charges I could dispute, specifically the flight upgrade and the luau tickets, which I had paid for with the understanding that I was attending the trip as well. The representative was incredibly matter-of-fact about it. She said that if I hadn't received the benefit of the service I'd paid for, and I had not since I wasn't going on the trip, I had grounds for a chargeback. It didn't cover everything, but it covered $880. The family left for Maui on a Thursday. I went to work. I answered emails. I made a sandwich for lunch. I had a call with a vendor in the afternoon that ran long, and by the time I checked my phone at 4 o'clock, I had 14 missed calls. 4 from my mom, 6 from Elliot, 2 from Priscilla, and 2 from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be my dad calling from the hotel landline, because I'd apparently stopped responding to his cell. My mom's first voicemail was confused. Avery, something is wrong with the luau tickets. They're saying there are chargebacks on the account, honey. Can you call me? Elliot's first voicemail was less confused and more alarmed. Ave, what did you do? Seriously, call me back right now. By voicemail 3, from Priscilla, the tone had shifted to something I'd describe as quietly threatening. Avery, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is really affecting our vacation, and I think you need to think about the kind of person you want to be. I saved that one. I played it back twice. The 14th message, from my dad on the hotel landline, was just him sighing and saying, Avery, please call your mother. I did not call anyone back that night. I went to bed at 10 o'clock and I slept better than I had in months. The attorney's letter reached Elliot and Priscilla's house while they were still in Maui. I know this because Priscilla's sister, who was apparently watering their plants, called Elliot in a panic after finding an official-looking envelope from a law office shoved through the mail slot. Priscilla called me on Saturday afternoon and I let it go to voicemail, she said, voice shaking for the first time. Avery, there's a letter here from an attorney. It says you have a lien on our house. Is that real? It was real. My mom called right after. This conversation I answered because I had been waiting for it, and I wanted her to hear my voice when I said what I had to say. She started with, I don't understand what you're trying to do here. I said, I'm trying to get back the $22,000 I lent to Elliot and Priscilla 18 months ago, and the $7,200 I paid in rent before that, and the $360 I spent on a vacation I wasn't invited to. Silence. I kept going. I was very calm. I'd had a week to practice being calm. You texted me that I wasn't family. Mom, I've given Elliot and Priscilla over $30,000 in the last 2 years. I helped them get into that house, and when you planned a family celebration I wasn't included. So I want to understand, if I'm not family, why do I keep paying family expenses? She said. That's not fair. We love you. It's just this trip was supposed to be intimate. I said family only. I remember. Another silence. Then, the lien is going to cause them so much stress, Avery, I said. I imagine it will. She started crying, genuine crying, not the performative kind, real tears in her voice. And that was the hardest moment in all of this, honestly. Not the text, not the chargebacks, not any of the legal paperwork. Just hearing my mom cry and knowing that I wasn't going to say it's okay, forget it, I'll take care of it. That was the part that required the most from me. I said, Mom, I love you, but I can't keep doing this. When I said yes every single time, it wasn't because I had extra money to throw around. It was because I love this family. And the way you handled this trip told me that love only goes one direction. She didn't have an answer for that. Elliot called me the day they got back from Maui. He was not crying. He was furious, which somehow felt more manageable than my mom's tears. You could have just talked to me, he said, like an adult. Instead you go hire a lawyer and put a lien on my house? That's insane, Avery. That's actually insane. I said, Elliot, I asked you about repayment at Christmas dinner and Mom looked at me like I'd committed a crime. I sent you texts about it twice that you left unread. I tried talking to you. That's different from involving attorneys. I agree, I said. Which is why I wish the other approach had worked. He hung up. He called back 11 minutes later and his voice was different. The bravado was gone and underneath it was something closer to scared. He asked me what it would take to make this go away. I told him, full repayment of the $22,000 lien, in a documented wire transfer within 60 days. The attorney would release the lien upon receipt. The rent money from years ago, I told him I was letting that go. Not because it wasn't real, but because I'd already decided I wasn't trying to bankrupt my brother. I was trying to establish that I wasn't an unlimited resource. He said he'd have to talk to Priscilla. I said that was fine. What happened next surprised me. It was Priscilla who called back, not Elliot. She called on a Tuesday evening and she wasn't angry. She was quiet in a way I'd never heard from her before, and she said, "I owe you an apology, not just for the vacation thing, for a lot of things." I didn't say anything. I let her keep going. She said she'd known for a long time that they were leaning on me too much. She said she'd told herself stories about it, that it was temporary, that Elliot's income was about to pick up, that she was contributing in other ways. She said the lien had made it impossible to tell herself those stories anymore, because suddenly there was a legal document that said, in plain language, "You borrowed $22,000 from Avery and you haven't paid it back." I said, "Priscilla, I don't need you to feel guilty about it forever. I just needed it to be real." She said, "It's real now." The wire transfer came through 48 days later, 2 weeks ahead of the deadline, $22,000 exactly. The attorney sent the lien release to the Franklin County recorder the following morning. I have not spoken to Elliot since the phone call where he hung up on me. My mom and I have talked carefully a few times. The first real conversation we had, where we said actual things instead of dancing around them. She told me she felt like she'd failed both of us, me and Elliot, in different ways. She'd protected him so much that she'd never let him learn to handle things himself, and she'd assumed I would always be fine because I always seemed fine. I said, I was fine because I worked really hard to be fine, not because I had extra. She cried again. So did I, that time. We're not all the way back to normal, my family and I. I'm not sure what normal looks like anymore, or if the version we had was ever actually working. But my mom and I have Sunday phone calls now that feel more honest than anything we've had in years. She asked me recently what I needed from her, what I actually needed, not what was convenient, and I said I needed her to stop treating me like a backup plan. She said she would try. The $22,000 is sitting in a high-yield savings account. I've started using it toward a down payment on a place of my own, a condo in the short north that I found on a Tuesday afternoon when I should have been in a meeting. 1 bedroom, good natural light, a kitchen that actually has counter space, no one else's name on anything. I went to see it on a Saturday morning with a coffee in my hand and stood in the empty living room for a long time, just listening to how quiet it was. I made an offer that afternoon. I am nobody's backup plan anymore.